Hello everybody, I'm Mr Tuck, teacher of English at Van Dyke, so I'll be seeing you in September. I've been at Van Dyke for 3 years now, including my training year. I actually went to school at Van Dyke as well, so I've got quite a long-standing relationship with the school. I absolutely love being an English teacher. I love the discussion that's involved, hearing students come up with interpretations of texts. Particularly enjoy teaching poetry and anything that's really concept led, talking about abstract ideas, big themes. It's a wonderful feeling sort of hearing what students come up with. So we're reading a text together. You would have started that with Miss Peplow's video. It's going to be the wrong way around, but it's The Wall by William Sutcliffe. So I'm going to take you through the next section of the book. The cover over the opening wobbles with just a gentle touch. It's made of metal, but it's thinner and lighter than the one at the entrance. Or maybe this is the entrance. That all depends on who the tunnel was built for and why. I gently slide the cover to one side, creating an opening big enough for my head, then work my feet up to the next knot. All I have to do now is straighten my legs and my head will be poking out, giving me my first view of the other side. I come up in an alleyway between a ragged concrete building with bricked over windows and the wall, which on this side looks unrecognisable. It is the same size, of course, and the same concrete, but unlike the bare grey surface I'm used to, this side is entirely covered for the first 2 metres of its height with graffiti, a mixture of drawings, slogans and random scrawls. None of it is in my language, so I can't read a word. One image of a huge old-fashioned key is repeated in a long line above the text 20 or 30 times, so high it must have needed a ladder to do it. At one end of the alley, a high chain-link fence blocks the way through to what looks like either wasteland or an abandoned garden. In the other direction, my view is obscured by a pair of large rubbish bins, but I can see a few passing feet and a glimpse of the odd car. This is the way to the town. But the tunnel exit, or entrance, is set up so you can get in and out without being visible from the streets. I check again that no one can see me, swiveling my head in all directions, then push aside the tunnel door and haul myself out. As soon as I'm up, I push the cover back over the tunnel with my feet. I stand dead still, not daring to move. Through a gap between the bins, I can see a slither of what looks like normal life. Cars, motorbikes, pedestrians, people going here and there, doing the things that people do, carrying plastic bags, pushing children in buggies, chatting, standing around. But even within this little slice, I can see that something is fundamentally different from what I'm used to. Perhaps it's the bustle, the noise, the crowds. Perhaps it's the way people look and walk, how they talk to one another and what they're wearing. Perhaps it's the oddity of knowing that the freakishness of this place is only in my head, and its unfamiliarity to me. These are ordinary people having an ordinary day in what for them is an ordinary town. But it feels as if my short journey through the tunnel has transported me further away from home than I've ever been. And this small glimpse, this tiny slither of a view is simply not enough. I edge towards the bins and squeeze myself through the gap, just far enough to see out of the alley. It leads to the street through a narrow opening between 2 tall concrete buildings, the walls streaked with green and brown stains. I stare, pressing myself into the shadows, watching and listening, slowly creeping forward to widen my view. I know I ought to turn and head straight back to safety, but what I'm seeing holds me there, watching. This place is bursting with something I can't quite put my finger on, a feeling of bustle and life which seems like the very essence of what the quiet, clean, just built streets of Amarius lack. Eventually I reach the corner and allow myself a quick look in each direction. 2 speedy snapshots of this close but distant world. Rows of shops and stalls line the road, everything jumbled together. In front of me, a man in a tracksuit is standing alongside a wooden cart piled high with cigarettes. Behind him is a grocery store with sacks of beans, lentils, chickpeas, couscous and rice laid out on the pavement, underneath boxes of aubergines, green peppers, potatoes, cauliflowers and lemons. Further down the street, an old woman in a black headscarf is sitting on a plastic crate between a waist-high stack of eggs, but her pavement space is shared with an array of car seats, springs, cogs and axles, which are spilled out from a garage. Further on, there are more rows of old men and women sitting behind small stacks of vegetables, mixed in with younger guys selling mobile phones and phone accessories encrusted with fake jewels. Opposite the alley is a bakery, with a large hand-painted sign showing a slice of green cake with wings flying through and electric blue sky. In the window, there's a heap of oval loops of bread, like stretched bagels and bright yellow star-shaped pastries. In the other direction, there's a butcher's with 3 whole carcasses, almost as big as me, hanging from hooks, outside which 2 middle-aged guys are sitting behind a wooden tray on a low stand, displaying bracelets, hair clips and baby shoes. Further down are fruit stalls and sweet stalls, blocking the entrance to a noisy workshop in which 2 men, obscured by clouds of dust, are operating a circular saw surrounded by stacks of doors. As I watch, 2 teenage boys pass by, dragging an enormous canister of cooking gas. A wooden cart piled with a teetering pyramid of oranges follows closely behind them. The mournful wail of a solo voice backed by violins is drifting down the street from one direction, clashing with a hectoring speech blaring from the distorted speakers of a badly tuned radio. Next door to the bakery, an old man in a crocheted white cap is sitting on a plastic stool in a narrow doorway, opening and closing a cigarette lighter, watching everything, looking neither bored nor interested. Nothing on its own is particularly weird, but taken all together it's the most astonishing street I've ever seen, both enticingly alive and strangely depressing. There's no paving on the pavement, and the tarmac on the road is old, cracked and dotted with stagnant puddles. The buildings don't look properly built, with cables and pipes hanging off them in strange places. Many seem unfinished, sprouting tufts of iron bars from their roofs. Hardly anything is painted, and the shops all spill out onto the streets as if there's no clear difference between inside and outside. Not one of the passing pedestrians seemed to find any of this even slightly strange. Staring at this mysterious vision of strangeness and normality, I lose track of my intention to snatch a glance and leave. Even when a couple of people notice me, staring momentarily, then walking on, my feet are still slow to turn me round and take me back. Then I spot a group of 4 boys crossing the street in my direction, heading straight towards me at speed. They're big, at least a year or 2 older than me, and their eyes seem to be glowing with a strange intensity, twinkling with excitement as they bear down on me. I spin on my heel and sprint down the alley. I hear their footsteps accelerate as they give chase, then angry shouts boom out, echoing down the columns of dank air. I can't understand the words, but this obviously isn't a friendly greeting. With my heart beating so hard, it seems to be battering against my ribcage. I push through the gap between the bins. I can see that I'll get to the tunnel before the boys, but if they follow me down and through, what then? My feet drive hard against the dusty ground as I accelerate away from the bins, hurling myself towards my escape route. But suddenly I see I'm not alone. There's a boy standing on top of the tunnel entrance. His arms are folded across his chest and his feet are planted firmly on the trapdoor. He's the same height as me and looks thin but tough. Even though he's neatly dressed in a clean school uniform, just the way he's standing makes him look like the kind of kid who knows how to throw a punch. I pause only a few steps away from the tunnel. He stares at me, his gaze hard and sad, as if he understands exactly who I am and what I want. And with an almost regretful look on his face, he gives his head a small shake. He isn't going to move. He isn't going to let me into the tunnel. I could try to push him away, but if he fights back, I'll be done for. The 4 guys chasing me are already pushing between the bins. They'll be on me in a matter of seconds. There's only one direction left to run, onwards past the tunnel towards the chain link fence. The boy stares at me impassively as I take off again, running the only way I can, further down the alley towards who knows what. If I can't get over the fence, I have no idea what those boys will do to me. It'll be bad, but how bad? I've never been in a proper fight before, and now I know I'm about to be beaten up, punched and kicked at the very least, by a gang of boys bigger and older and tougher than me, who hate me just for being who I am, for coming from the other side of the wall. Even if I do get away from the boys, I'll need to find a way back to the tunnel. If I get lost, I'm in serious danger. There might be adults here who wish even more harm on me than these boys. As my hands crash into the wire of the fence, juddering me to a dead stop, it strikes me that I might never get home. I grip hard and begin to climb. At the first 2 attempts, I slip back down, having barely cleared the ground. Only the very tips of my trainers will fit into the tilted squares of wire that make up the fence, and my fingers alone aren't strong enough to hold my weight. The gang is closer now, running past the boy standing on the trapdoor, sprinting towards me, still shouting. There's an edge of triumph in whatever it is they're saying. They know they have me cornered. In desperation, I kick off my trainers and begin to climb again. I can now get my big toes into the fence holes. The wire bites into my skin, but I spider up the fence using all my strength just as the boys catch up with me. They jump at my ankles, one of them catching hold and pulling me down towards him. His pull jerks my other toe out of its foothold, and for a moment I'm hanging only by my hands. I have scarcely a second's more strength to support myself, but my half fall causes the boy to lose his grip on my ankle. I shove my toes back into the fence and continue to climb as fast as I can, the fence clacking and swaying under my weight. It seems like only a moment later that I'm up, over and letting myself drop down on the other side. I land heavily, skidding on the stony ground and falling onto my back. Above me, I see that 2 of the 4 boys are following me over the fence, but their size makes it harder for them and they're slower than me, still only halfway up the other side. As I stand again, I'm now close enough to reach out and touch the 2 boys who have given up on the climb. The hate in their eyes shines furiously out at me through the fence. I try to think what I could say to make them realise that I'm not worth hating, that I have nothing against them, that I'm just a boy who's never done anything bad to anyone, but no words form in my head. It seems for a moment as if one of them is about to speak, then a frothy, white globule flies from his mouth towards my face. I have time to blink before it hits, time to glimpse its stringy form rotating through the air, but not to get out of the way. I turn and run, wiping the warm, viscous saliva from my face as I go. The small patch of open ground, which I now see, is planted with abandoned, dried-out vines, leads me to a T-junction. I head blindly to the right, running down a narrow street of low concrete houses, dodging between clusters of children and weaving between low-slung washing lines. Everyone stops what they're doing and stares as I run past. I can feel the rough, stony ground cutting into the soles of my feet with every step, but there isn't time to slow down or pick level ground for each footfall. I zigzag left and right as much as I can, turning at every junction, but whenever I slow, thinking I might be getting away, I hear again the shouts of the boys who are chasing me. My thighs soon screech at me for a rest, the muscles seeming to harden and thicken around my bones. My throat tightens to a narrow, burning pipe, delivering only feeble threads of air to my gasping lungs. I press on, as far as I can go, until eventually I realise my legs can carry me no further. I stagger to a halt and listen. For an instant, silence. My pulse seems to be hammering throughout my body, in my fingertips, my neck, my temples, as if every part of me is expanding and contracting to pump blood. I hear no shouts, no running footsteps, but they can't be far behind. My last hope is to hide, and I have only moments to get myself out of sight. I look around the narrow street and see a black motorbike parked against a wall with a corner of space half concealed behind it. This is hardly a perfect hiding place, but it's my only option. I jump into the gap and squash my body into itself, curling up like a fetus. When I have found the best position, I hold myself absolutely still and breathe as steadily and quietly as I can, fighting to rein in the insistent rasp with my lungs. A sudden beep from my pocket pierces the air. I pull out my phone. There's a text on the screen. Okay, have fun, Mum. 3 kisses. My phone. Is there someone I could summon to help me? Who could I contact? How could I describe where I am when I don't even know? Whatever might be possible at this moment, I can't make a sound, let alone a call, or even risk another beep. With my thumb muffling the speaker, I switch it off. It seems bizarre that these words can beam out from a mast somewhere on the other side of the wall and find me here, crouched behind a motorbike. The thought of my mum probably standing at the stove typing out this message makes my throat tighten and my eyes sting. I can see it, the pans bubbling in front of her, the curve of her neck, the slight frown as she struggles with the tiny buttons. It's possible that I never again find myself in that kitchen, that at this very moment she's cooking the last meal she'll ever make for me, and I won't even taste it. As I twist to put the phone in my pocket, I see something astonishing and terrifying directly above me. There's a girl leaning out of a raised ground floor window, and her large brown eyes are looking straight down at me. If I'd seen her before, I would have written off this hiding place immediately, but now it's too late to change. She's wearing a grey and purple school uniform and looks no older than me, but her hair is plaited on either side of her head in the style of someone much younger. Her eyebrows are puckered together, forming an expression of amused puzzlement. For a strangely drawn-out moment, we look at one another. The girl leaning out into the street, me crouched down behind the motorbike. With my eyes, I beg her not to give me away. I put a finger to my lips just as I hear the sound of 4 sprinting footsteps run past me, so close that particles of dust clatter against the spokes of the motorbike wheel. I flinch and press myself against the ground, willing the boys to keep on running. They pass by without spotting me, but before the footsteps go out of earshot, I hear them falter, then stop. The road just ahead of the motorbike forks into 2. I hear them exchange a few words and turn and head back in my direction. I feel something inside me give way, an internal collapse of courage and hope, which feels like the ground caving in under my hiding place, dropping me into a helpless freefall. The boys speak again in louder voices, their feet now less than a metre away, but their language incomprehensible. Then I hear another voice, the girl. From the gestures and intonation, it's clear what is being said. They want to know if she saw me and where I have gone. Without looking down at me, she points up one of the roads, sounding enthusiastic and bloodthirsty, wiggling her finger fast as if to encourage them to hurry. They don't even wait for her to finish speaking before they run off. She watches them go without even glancing downwards. After the sound of their footsteps has receded to nothing, she lowers her eyes and gives me what is almost a smile. I look up at her, too shattered and confused to smile back. She beckons me upwards and I slowly uncurl myself, crouching for a moment behind the saddle to check with my own eyes that the boys have gone. My legs feel stiff and sore as I straighten up and look at her through the open window. She has a pretty, friendly face with wide, full lips and prominent front teeth, as if her mouth was intended for a slightly bigger head. Her eyes have a ring of black flecks at the perimeter of large brown irises, like the site of a minuscule explosion. They are the eyes of someone who thinks fast. She says something to me, but I can't understand. My mouth seems incapable of shaping a smile or uttering any words of thanks. Then without any warning, she shuts the window in my face and disappears. I look around me. I'm totally lost. I have no idea how I've got to this place or how to get away from it. It won't be long before the boys, realising they've been sent the wrong way, return. I wonder for a moment if I should crouch down behind the motorbike again, or if it's futile to put off the inevitable any longer. Perhaps I should just stand there and let them find me. A door clatters open and the girl appears again on her front step. She barks more words at me, urgently this time, but I still can't understand. I shrug and she takes a deep breath. Forming each syllable carefully, she speaks once more, this time in my language. Come inside, she says. I look at her blankly. Quickly, she says. They might come back. I squeeze out from behind the motorbike, almost knocking it over. I follow her into the house. As soon as we are in, she closes and bolts the door behind us. I try to thank her, but when I open my jaw, my chin begins to wobble, and this sensation causes my niece to decide that they too have forgotten how to behave. Jelly-legged, I realise I can't remain upright for much longer. I lean my back against the door and slide downwards until the floor comes up to meet me. Without any real idea of how it happened, I find myself sitting on the tiles of this girl's hallway. She indicates with her hands that I should say put and walks away, returning a few moments later with a glass of water. I'm not sure if it's safe to drink the water on this side of the wall, but I don't want to seem ungrateful and I'm desperately thirsty, so I down the whole thing in one gulp. As I handle the empty glass, I realise I've got back the ability to voluntarily move my face, and I stretch my lips into a smile of gratitude, worrying as I do so that my expression might bear more resemblance to a grimace of pain. I feel like I need to check that my features are doing what I think they're doing. She takes the glass from me, our fingers brushing as she does so. Mine are black with filth, hers are clean and slender, with nails immaculately painted a dark shade of blood red. It's a strange mismatch, these adult hands and that childish hairstyle. Her bare feet move soundlessly across the tiles as she walks away, then returns with a refilled glass. I swallow this one again in a single slug. With nothing more than a raise of one eyebrow, she offers me another glass. I smile and nod, more confident this time that my smile really is a smile. The third glass I drink more slowly. I even manage a thank you. It's okay, she says. For saving me, I mean. That's okay too, she says. Her voice is deeper than you'd expect from a girl her size. Her accent's strong and throaty, but easy to understand. She leaves a gap between every word, pronouncing each one as if it's a jigsaw piece being slotted into place. It's very kind of you, I say. I mean, more than kind. I don't know what the word is. They were going to... I don't know. I can't finish the sentence. I don't want to imagine what they would have done to me. I hate those boys, they're bullies. They beat up my cousin. Her forehead wrinkles with anger, her lips pursing into a resentful pout. Do you think they'll come back, I ask? I don't know. I want to. I can't get the next word out. The feel of it moving from my brain to my tongue sets my chin spasming again. I stop myself, take a deep breath and try to get through the whole sentence in one quick gabble. I want to go home. I stare down into my drink and sip. A swirling green pattern covers the glass. The rim is painted gold. A worm of sweat slides down my spine. I shiver, momentarily unsure if I am hot or cold. It strikes me that I can smell a sour, meaty waft coming from the residue of the boy's spit on my cheek. The stink of it brings back the look on his face as he spat, a pure hatred I've never seen before, let alone had directed straight at me. As if without that fence between us, he would have reached out and ripped me open. I dip my fingers into the glass and dab on my cheek and eyelid. My mother might have phoned David's mother by now and found out that I'm not with him. She could have phoned the school too to check that I left on time. It's probably dawning on her that something has gone wrong, that I'm missing, but even her worst nightmares didn't contain the possibility of me being here. I'm not, in truth, very far away at all. Probably only a few hundred meters, but I'm in another world. Thank you.